A few years back, I borrowed a 38mm Panerai Luminor Due, and naturally took it for a spin in the Italian market of Philly. Its shockingly low water resistance, like of a dress watch at 30 meters, its exaggerated price, in-house movement controversies still looming at the time, it was a brand in a bit of a downfall, and so it was a no-go for me, even if it was absolutely gorgeous and I am deeply bewitched by its history and design. However, after recently doing a little bit more digging on some older models and some sweet deals I found on the used market, I finally pulled the trigger. So let's find out if this time around it's a worthy addition to my collection, and if I will be joining the legion that is the Paneristi, or is this another Panerai disaster in the making? Well, brace for the pun, and let's dive into it.
The most successful Italian sneak craft was their version of the human torpedo. At night, detection was almost impossible.
We have a deal. It's actually thinking about something a little more your size.
Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. A new year, a new watch, and a new brand for me. Well, certainly in my collection, I've bought a Panerai. I know, I was going to buy a Captain Willard, but that's later this year. I have a good reason for this. I am going to Florence at some point this year, so how can I go to Florence without a Panerai, right? I'll do a quick wristwatch check. I'm wearing the Dan Henry 1972 for very good reason. I'll explain why later. We'll return to that watch later on. So let's get into it, shall we? Oh God, when is it gonna end? When is it gonna end? For those unfamiliar with Panerai, let's quickly contextualize. Giovanni Panerai opened his first watch shop in a city that I love, probably beyond all others in this entire world. We are, of course, talking about my beloved Firenze. And this was in 1860. Aside from being the birthplace of the Renaissance, its obvious massive cultural importance to the world, and for so many other reasons as well, it's where I lived and studied for several years, and incidentally met my wife. So as you can imagine, we're already off to a good start. Giovanni's grandson, Guido Panerai, expanded the watch shop into the Orologeria Svizzera. He was something of an engineering genius. In 1915, he invented a hermetically sealed waterproof illuminated gun sight that caught the attention of the Italian military. So despite Florence being around 100 kilometers from the Mediterranean Sea, it was, however, one of the closest Italian watchmakers to the seaside city of La Spezia in Liguria, where there is one of the Italian Navy's most important and historic bases. Panerai by this time had proven themselves in being able to manufacture a whole variety of precision military instruments. So when it came time to supply the Marina Militare with watches, G. Panerai Figlio was selected by the then black-shirted government, and this was by Italy's fascist regime of the time. This coincided with the formation of one of the most legendary, daring and controversial hardcore commando frogman units ever created. We are, of course, talking about the Decima Flottiglia Mass.
This constant threat of surprise attack was almost as much of a strain on the Allies as the 150,000 tons of shipping actually damaged or sunk.
So why are these guys so renowned? Well, essentially, they were the first ever underwater special forces frogman units, later copied by pretty much everyone the world over, from the Royal Navy to the United States Navy, a progenitor, if you will, of the Navy SEALs or Special Boat Service of today. But more importantly, despite being a relatively small unit, their insanely daring exploits made them one of the most highly decorated, fanatically loyal, and extremely dangerous. Just look at their weapon of choice, a manned torpedo called maiale, which translates to pig in English. But don't let its cutesy name fool you. Its effect on their main enemy, which at the time was the most powerful navy in the world, the British Royal Navy, was utterly devastating. Obviously, water resistance and timing was crucial in these types of operations, and so Panerai, using watches designed and manufactured by Rolex, with movements made by Swiss manufacturer Courbet, which already had several contracts with the Italian fascist government, gave birth to what would become called the Radiomir. Its name is derived from the Panerai-made dials that were rendered with luminous and highly radioactive radium-based self-luminous compound. That eBay blue, the time has come. I've done videos on their authentication program, really good stuff. I believe they do it for trainers, or kicks as they say. This is all the information here. So as of right now, as I am shooting this unboxing, the same seller in Japan has got another one of these watches, and it's going for 3,380 something, right? So I just thought, you know, I put a couple of extra $100 in for the box, the papers, and a newer model. So, moment of truth, drum roll please. Oh, nice hinged box. Unravel it. Oh, there it is. Oh wow, it's a lot smaller than I thought. And of course, with this famed lever system, you can wind it without even having to unscrew it. No returns if removed, so I'll be absolutely sure. If I can just, actually I could just slide it off there for the moment. It's another reason I like these older ones. Firenze. Look at the size, wow. It's not as big as I thought it would be. Che meraviglia ragazzi, che meraviglia. Stupendo questo qua.
100 feet below the Hudson River, the unthinkable is about to happen. Universal Pictures dares you to take on the tunnel.
You saying you found a way out of here? So was a chance.
When it comes to the looks, Panerai's appeal is undoubtedly its masculine boldness. There's a machismo to the simplicity of its design, and it just screams at you, I'm here to kick ass, and I'm all out of gum. Its blockbuster debut was on the wrist of Sylvester Stallone, or Stallone for my Italian gentry out there, in the 1996 action flick Daylight. The film was very much the culmination of over a decade of dominating the action movie genre, primarily with the Rambo franchise in the 80s, and then box office smash hits like Cliffhanger and Demolition Man in the early 90s, to name a few. While shooting Daylight at the historic Cinecittà in Rome, incidentally where mio nonno used to work no less, legend has it that Sly spotted a few Panerai and thought it would suit his character to a T.
And I didn't take it off to the end of filming. I wore it in the movie, and immediately it started to catch on. And then right after that, people started seeing this extraordinary shape and what it could do. And I said, my God, this thing has been through it. Just watch the movie, you'll see what I mean.
Today, that tradition carries on most numerously by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in over half a dozen movies, and also Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels actor turned action star Jason Statham.
That's exactly why I hate working with you. It's your voice. It's your nasally, prepubescent Harry Potter voice. Every time you speak, just imagine this for a second. It's like dragging my balls across shattered glass.
The watch in Daylight was the Luminor 5218201, and so what followed was a Florentine-style renaissance for the brand. See what I did there? Nice little callback. Sly also gifted one to his friend Arnold Schwarzenegger, and soon after, it seemed everyone in Hollywood had one. But unlike the more simplistic elegance of the 1930s Art Deco style, that were essentially oversized converted pocket watches, by the time it caught the eye of Stallone, the brand had already released two key updated collections in 1993. And this was the first time they had ever made watches for the civilian market, in fact. We are talking about the Mare Nostrum chronographs, the Roman name for the Mediterranean, meaning our sea. And the Luminor, named after the updated dials, which post-1965 had thankfully switched to the non-toxic tritium, then Luminova sometime in the 90s, and these days Super X1 Super Luminova for their new offerings. The main thing that separates the Radiomir from the Luminor is that unmistakable crown guard structure. This device gives it an extra technical tooltastic quality. This evolution from Radiomir to Luminor was completed in the 50s with the invention of the signature crown protecting system, which was patented in 1955 by brother and sister Giuseppe and Maria Giuseppe Panerai, who also invented it. Instantly recognizable, a bit like a Navitimer or a Santos, or what other distinctive designs that you can instantly tell from a GMT, a Pepsi GMT, right? You see those colors, you see those shapes, you know what it is from 10 meters away. The same with this. You know it's secure for diving as long as it's in. So it's tactile, ergonomically functional, but also it's like a visual indication that the crown is safe. The case is a little more angular compared to the obvious pocket watch curves of the cushion case Radiomir. That also has a more traditional onion-style crown. Together with this new case, it gives the Luminor a slightly steampunk aesthetic, while still vintage in origin, also captivatingly futuristic, as if it's from the Art Deco-style FPS computer game BioShock. Now there's a deep cut for those in the know. So let's talk about size. Now you guys know I like small watches, but this, like Flieger's or many divers that came later, and of course the Navitimer is a prime example too, it's meant to be big. In fact, in many ways Panerai was responsible for the hyper-masculinity of the oversized trend that permeated everywhere in the early 2000s and into the subsequent decades. Bear in mind, the original in the mid-1930s was a shockingly gargantuan 47 millimeters. The diameter, it is at the very extremities of what my wrist can take, but the height, down to that 7750 modified movement, unfortunately, a trait of them is they're really, really tall. I've owned so many in the past. Having said that, I do love the presence of it, that instant legibility. Like its original intentions. It's part of that inherent design language, so it gets a pass. It's very comfortable, I have to say, despite the chunkiness. So this, at 40mm, looks like the Stallone 44mm on my far skinnier 6.5 or thereabouts inch wrist. In 2021, Panerai did release the Luminor Marina 40, which means 40 in Italian, due to the 40mm case, which replaced the 42mm references that preceded it. But retailing at twice what I paid for, sometimes even more, and only with 100 meters water resistance, not the 300 meters with mine, you can see why this is such a sweet spot on the used market. So unfortunately, we only get 42 hours power reserve in this case, not the newer in-house P900 automatic calibers with that fantastic 3-day power reserve. That is in fact the backbone of most of the brand now. But thankfully, it is COSC certified and still running thereabouts. And I did pay a little bit extra to get all the box papers, even extra spring bars, and the original guarantee, which indicates this was bought in the northern city of Italy, Torino. So this is basically a modified 7750 inside, and aside from being tall, the chronograph module, so they took it out here, unfortunately does not make it any slimmer. So the movement is certainly dated by today's standards in the spec and all the rest of it. One thing that I've learned from having so many ETAs and Miyotas and Seiko movements is the affordability to maintain them. Also the ease. I always go with an independent watchmaker to service my watches. It's a very, very rock solid, reliable movement. Trust me, I've owned 3 or 4 of them in my time, mainly chronographs, so this is less complicated, so this is even tougher. Now normally I complain about the lack of tapering on straps, but like its oversized scale, this is another kind of trend that Panerai helped start. On other watches not so much, and looks kind of like a sloppy strap faux pas. Here it comes with a bog standard genuine leather strap as part of the deal. I'll most likely swap it out with a cheap and cheerful waffle 22mm Riscandi Watch Club rubber strap. As not only does it have really retro vibes, it's made out of FKM rubber, which is extremely robust, still supple, but also will last absolutely donkey's years. And that will give it a much more sporty everyday feel and function. My biggest negative so far with this watch is I would have loved to have a sandwich dial, and that's part of the reason I wore my Dan Henry 1972, because I absolutely adore them. There's something I really do appreciate about that extra subtle bit of depth, especially it being such a signature characteristic on the Panerai's rounded numerals and markers. And also we do get a little bit of wobble with the rotor that is just so typical of 7750 calibers that this one is obviously modified from, but at the same time it's kind of charming. It reminds you it's on the wrist, but I do understand it is an annoyance to some. Bold, formidable, unequivocally iconic, extremely versatile, wear it suited and booted or in a tracksuit, super cash. That mix of Art Deco chic, cinematic allure, at the same time futuristic, modernist kind of utilitarianism. What is there not to love? I can see why the watch inspires such a loyal following. Yeah, I'm turning into a panerista. There we go. What a way to start the year. It certainly meets the urban gentry trademark phrase of being a certified strap monster. It has a confidence that I feel mainly derives from its fascistic purity of form and function, and also explains its loyal following. It's not an accident they're referred to as paneristi. If you know Italian history, you know where that word comes from. But beyond the watch itself, it symbolizes a place very close to my heart. In fact, the flagship store opened a year previously to me moving there and is located in Piazza San Giovanni, right next door to where I bought my wife's engagement ring, overlooking Brunelleschi's masterpiece, the Duomo. I look forward to hopefully taking some hashtag wristwatch checks when I visit later this year with this Panerai on my wrist. But today, modern Panerai is not what it used to be in the late 90s and early 2000s luxury peak, with seemingly endless actors and celebrities sporting them. As a military tool watch, in many ways Swiss-made but Italian-owned Squale, with their professional divers that are now officially issued to Italian law enforcement and the Marina Militare, is kind of what Panerai used to be before mainstream civilian fame. However, I do think it's far from over for Panerai. They have a state-of-the-art manufacturing and research and development facility in the heartland of Swiss watchmaking at Lake Neuchâtel, while still being headquartered in Italy no less. And they are maintaining a steady level of growth as well. And I'm sure with such a rich heritage and distinctive style all of its own, which, let's be honest, is unlike anyone else, we still have lots to look forward to from the brand. But this is definitely the sweet spot right now. What would I love to see from Panerai? Well, for me, a 40mm Luminor submersible with an actual 300-meter depth rating, while using their new Carbotech super durable carbon fiber composite would be absolutely pure tooltastic class. In the meantime, I guess I have my Squale forged carbon to scratch that itch. Okay, so there we have it, and in my opinion, it's never been a better time to buy a Panerai. A slightly weaker brand is a stronger value proposition for you guys. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments, especially if you love or you loathe Panerai. What do you think of them? Your experiences with them? I love hearing your feedback, so do share that. Don't forget to like this video, extremely important. Best way to support the channel, especially if you want to see more free and independent content like this. Right, thank you for watching. Onwards and upwards, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.